is I'm a father, I'm an educator, I'm an outdoor guide, and that has led me on a path. I'm also a divorced person from many years ago, and that led me to coaching people who had seen significant life shifts that had them questioning their identity. And the big question we always come back to is just who am I? And we don't always know. So whether that is through a divorce, whether we've lost a loved one, whether we've moved to a new town, switched jobs, lost a job, uh, those can bring a lot of big questions for us. And so that's the work I do.
How did you get involved in this type of work and why?
Well, I've been an educator for 20 years, and I've always enjoyed one, just working with young people. Public speaking comes naturally to educators. And so through my outdoor guiding business, I had adults saying, well, when are you going to do a summer trip for adults as a joke, or can we come along? And that led to, yes, I'm going to offer a retreat one year. We did a yoga and adventure retreat in Arizona, which led to talking with some people who had undergone some life changes. And so, in working with them, I kind of had a light bulb moment of, oh, this is very much like teaching. And as I looked more into personal coaching, the mantra that you hear a lot in that is coach the person who you used to be because you're an expert on that. And so there I was.
That's beautiful because I know when I got into my coaching journey, I struggled in my life just trying to understand where I wanted to go. I call it, you know how some people say their children have the terrible twos, I had the terrible 20s. It was just a decade of confusion and insanity. When you look back on your journey and what led you here, what are some of the highs and lows that you believe defined you as a man?
Boy, the lows, the divorce was really low. And in many ways, it was my choice. I just knew that I wasn't happy. I had envisioned one life for us. And as I began to compromise or to let go of certain dreams that I felt like, well, that's not really available to me anymore, I not only became less of who I am, but I also became resentful, and which is totally unfair because I compromised on those things totally willingly, right? Um, so that was really low because I felt like a failure. And my whole life, all I felt like I wanted to do, what I knew that I needed to do well was to be a good father. And we can talk about that later. But I felt like I was letting my kids down, felt like I was letting myself down. So that was super low. Um, the highs were shortly after that divorce, re-engaging with some things that really bring me alive. And so that's outdoor pursuits, guiding, started a business, taking kids all over the country, backpacking, rock climbing, rafting. And that morphed into, through a friend, ultra marathons. And I had never been a runner. I'd done lots of sports, but never a runner. Running was always a punishment. And so the big goal and having something to work towards became paramount for me for several years. And finishing my first 50 miler in Colorado felt amazing. Well, no, it felt terrible because I did so poorly and it beat me up. But in retrospect, type two fun. And then finishing a 100 miler was just something that I wasn't sure I could ever do. And we did it.
When you started to develop this love for the outdoors and you started to work towards it, how important was that in your life to have that outlet, to have that activity?
Oh, from the time I was six, a tiny kid, I was sort of a free range child. I was canoeing in rivers and catching crawdads and hiking and playing. And um, as I got older, visited the mountains for the first time when I was in high school, and it blew my mind in Colorado. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was everything that I'd hoped it would be. And at that point in my life, I felt like having high expectations it could backfire. It's not going to be as good as I think it's going to be. It was better. It's unbelievable, and we still go back there to this day. So it's always been a big part of my life. My degree is in outdoor education, Originally, I had gone to school to climb big mountains, and um, kind of that was one of the compromises that I made to move more into education than into guiding. And so it's always been a really just central to who I am.
I used to play a lot of sports, and one thing I always remember about the sports is just the togetherness, right? And another thing that I remember is when you're out there and you have that adrenaline, it's like you can conquer anything in the world, and then you come back to reality.
Yeah, well,
Right?
I also love being on any high performing team. I was on a search and rescue course, and we had this team of people who were very competent and they were performing at a high level. We were doing high angle rescues and rigging ropes and litters and all kinds of stuff to rappel off these rocks and get people out of cracks. And at 3 in the morning, these simulations that we're doing. And it's there's something so energizing about being a part of a team where you know that the person next to you is performing, like they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And it inspires us, it inspires me. I'll speak for me. It inspires me to want to perform that way as well. And when you do that, having that community is just so uplifting.
Do you think sometimes people are missing that in their life?
I think it's an epidemic. I
Mm.
think we don't have community in the way that we once did. I think our devices are a lot of that. I think um, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole too far, but I think our politics is part of that. We don't see the person anymore. We see somebody who's on our team or not on our team, and that's too bad.
Yeah, I think sometimes, and you're right, that we don't see the person, we see an identity. It could be that you vote this way, you subscribe to this type of religion. We don't see, okay, are you a good person?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a happy person? Are you peaceful? Are you content? You know what? Can we be bros?
Do you bring other people joy? Do you contribute to other people's
Yeah,
happiness? Can you just say hi to someone even though you don't know
I know, right? It's like I used to be that guy, and I know a lot of people probably don't like this guy, but I used to be that guy that when I'm walking down the street, Alan, I'm saying hi.
them?
I'm saying good morning, how are you? I just keep walking, right? And if they say hi back, they say hi back. If they don't, they don't. But I know my day's gonna continue to be good because I put good out there. Um, and I had a conversation with someone. They're like, Terrain, how do you just say hi? I'm like, just like that. Hello,
Mhm.
hi. And they were compromising themselves to your point, right? When they mentioned that they were giving up things because there was the shame, there was the shyness, there was the guilt. The people that you work with, when they're trying to move through the divorce, through a breakup, what role do you think in general guilt and shame plays in their life?
I think it's huge. I think it's huge. And I know for me, both of those things, I couldn't even say the word divorce for 6 months because I gave it so much weight and I felt like such a failure. And so you can avoid things. You avoid social settings where you might see people who know you both. Or people who are going to ask you about, hey, how's it going? It can be crushing, and that's another area why I think community is so important. The people that I work with on a daily basis, I teach middle schoolers in a Montessori school, have become my community to the point that some of them were in my wedding, some of them raised my children from the time they were 6 months old here at school. So I think having those people around you helps alleviate some of that because they love you no matter what. And that helps you work through that guilt or that shame.
What are some of the common obstacles that some of these people are facing on their path to move away from guilt and shame?
Lack of confidence. I think they wear the guilt so heavily, they think, well, I've messed this up. I don't know that I'll ever be good at anything, or nothing will ever be good for me again, or I don't deserve it. And getting back to who you are, who you always have been, is always the first step. We do a deep dive into just what are your core values. And when we do that, It's one thing to say, I believe in this, or this is very important to me. But the conversation then leads to, where is that showing up in your life? And for me, being outdoors and being active and moving was a key part of my identity. Like that was super important to me at that time. I wasn't doing any of it. And so of course I was going to lack in confidence because I felt like a fraud. I'm not really doing the things that I believe. And so we try to drill into just 3 to 6 of those things and implement in small ways evidence of that in our lives. And that begins to build confidence.
So when you mentioned the six things, what are some of those areas and some of the behaviors that you help them to cultivate?
Well, the first bit is just asking them what are those core values, and I run them through a worksheet, and they've got all the a million of them to choose from, and then we just drill down until we find a few, and then I ask that question, show me, give me an example in your life, your day to day, this week, where this value has showed up for you, and people get stumped, and so then um, we just ask, like, well, what do you want it to look like? And this is the hardest question for someone who has just had their identity shaken. Like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I'm good at. I don't, there are more questions than answers. And so we start small. I give them little challenges just to go out in the world and do. You walking down the street and saying hi to people, that's one of the challenges. When you go to the coffee shop today, I want you to compliment the person either behind you in line, the person who is serving you the coffee, someone that you run into before you get to work. Just give them a compliment because, like you said, people don't know how to take it. They think, are they being weird? Like, are they being sarcastic? No, man, I'm just being joyful and I'm taking a risk. And when I take that teeny tiny little risk and nothing bad happens to me, I'll be willing to try a risk that's just a little bit bigger the next time.
It's interesting to see someone take that step, or in their case, it's probably a leap. It's a step to us, but it's a leap to them. And then they're like, I didn't die.
Yeah,
Of course you didn't die.
nothing
You know,
happened.
nothing happened. Take
Mm-hmm.
another step. I can do two. You can do
Mm,
as many as you want as long as you're comfortable. And then you can see their confidence building. There's this lady. Anytime she asked me how I was doing, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to give her a different word every time she asks. I was like, I'm marvelous. She's like, marvelous. And she asked me another time, and I was like, I'm wonderful. And then I was like, okay, what other can I make the words bigger and more complex? I was like, I'm stupendous. And she's like, Turing, you're stupid? I was like, no, that means I feel good, right? Because I'm using words that she hasn't heard,
mm,
but because I'm pronouncing them in a funny way and I'm making it over the top, it made her connect. And the reason why I share that story is some people just asking is difficult. To your point, right? Some people receiving it is even more difficult,
mhm.
right? And then some people will watch other people do it and they're like, I want to join, but I don't know if I'm worthy of that. Do you see people struggling with sense of worthiness or lack thereof?
I think people call it being shy, but they just don't have enough confidence to take the next step. And so, what you did in that example, I think, is amazing because when you give them stupendous or I'm magnificent, I'm fantastic, couldn't be better, you're inviting them in. You're almost daring them to ask a follow-up question. And now we're having a conversation. We're not just nodding at each other in the hallway. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, she turned around and she was like, Trina, marvelous. And I started laughing because there are days where you're going to struggle. I think many of us are going to struggle. There's going to be days where we mentioned earlier that I don't know if this person is for me. I don't know if this job is for me. I don't even know if I want to be around my brother, my sister anymore. And we have to make a choice. Ellen, the day that they decide, or the day that you decided that I don't know if I could commit to this relationship anymore in the way that I'm committing, what were some of the emotions or thoughts that you were going through at that time, or people that you work with?
Yeah, I think the doubt about whether I can do this on my own Uh, do I, is it better for me just to stay and be miserable or to take this leap? And that is, um, especially for those who have chosen to leave the marriage. That's when I say, look, you've already done something bold. You could have just put your head down and muddled through life and been pretty miserable, it sounds like, for many of them. For whatever reason, it wasn't working. You left for a reason or the marriage ended for a reason. And so you've been through kind of the worst. The worst case scenario has happened. So now what are you going to do? The rest of it's not going to be worse than this. In ultra running, I don't remember who said it. I wish I could give them credit. They say it never always gets worse. You'll hit those low points and your stomach will go bad and you can't eat anything and all you want to do is sit in a lawn chair. Eventually it gets better. And that's why there's so many analogies and I use them a lot with those long distance races because at the beginning you feel oftentimes like, all right, I'm doing it. I've got some enthusiasm. And then mile 30 hits and you're like, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. But that's where the mindset comes in. You have to know ahead of time you're gonna have low points. Okay. But you also know it's gonna get better. And so committing to that process, I think is a real trick.
You mentioned community, and growing up, community was big for me, very important in my life. What are some of the ways that, in general, we can build community?
Mm-hmm. I think re-engaging with who we are. Mm-hmm. I think releasing expectations. I don't. I'm not going to go out to this meeting and expect anything. I'm not going to go to this meetup of kayakers, this meetup of runners, this meetup of real estate investors, whatever you're into. I'm really just going to go to be surrounded by people who have similar interests and just make that the baseline because getting out among those people reaffirms that you really do enjoy this thing, whatever it is. And they don't think it's odd. They're not going to ask you not to do it. Something you can communicate about or connect on super easily. And it's so low stakes. You go back home and you're fine. But if it goes great, then you go again and you start meeting more people and you're doing the thing who that expresses who you are. And the more you do that, I was shocked when I got back into being me. It just attracts people of similar mindsets. The more I express, like, hey, this is me. This is what I love to do. That suddenly they're all there and they're all supporting me. And people root for your success. They want you to do well. And so having that confidence of being around all those similar minded people, you're more likely to express the things that you really want to achieve. And oh, you want to do that? Well, I know somebody who wants to do that. Here, let me give you their number. Let me get you two together. Like, that happens all the time. As soon as we start intentionally and actively pursuing who we want to be.
Can that be scary for some people to find who they want to be in life?
If it's not, you're not doing it right. I think one of the tenets, I've got this, what are those things? Acrostic, right? Or an acronym. It's the Adventure 10. And you go down the list, each letter stands for something. And I'll share it with your listeners and you guys can have it. But when you get to the zero or the one at the end of the 10, it's you should be doing one thing that scares you all the time. And for some people, it's saying hi to somebody. For some people, it's I want to go skydiving. I don't want to go skydiving, but you get the point. And I think that if you're really leaning into who you are, you should be challenging yourself. So it should be scary.
One of the scariest things for me over the last couple of years was I'm going to make sure that I either text or call my close group of friends once or twice a month. Some people may look at me train, that's easy, but for me, just because I was busy and I felt that a check-in was Alan and myself, we planned something to go do together, right? But in between those meetups, What was I doing to continue to grow the relationship? So I was intentional and I
Mm-hmm.
made sure that I stuck to that. And I love it now. And the feedback I've been getting, I was like, oh, people wanted this. And I was, I didn't give people the opportunity to grow in that way with me. And looking back, I realized I was like, wow, I took away something from people. When it comes to being intentional and building that community, I understand that it could be difficult for some people, but you also share that small actions.
Mm-hmm.
Are we our own worst enemy when it comes to the small actions?
Well, I think it depends on the person, but yes, almost always. I think w- we talk ourselves out of things all the time, or at least I do. Again, I try to use I statements when I'm working with clients too. I don't want to give anyone agreements. Like you said, I think that you are cheating the people around you if you don't take that step. When I was a kid, did not hug men. I was never hugged by a man. When my father, I didn't grow up with my father in the house. It just wasn't a thing that we did. I belong to a men's circle now, and I hug those guys every month, and it's become so natural, right? But what did I deprive other people in my life of by not telling them I love them, by not hugging them? And just in the last 4 years, I've gotten much better at it. And there are four men in my life now that almost every time we leave each other, we're like, all right, see you, love you, just so naturally. And so you do have to take that chance. But boy, how much stronger is our community too?
Yeah, I'm that I hug everybody.
Hmm.
Right? I because like we were talking about, right? You may not necessarily want it, but that other person, right? They may say that, Alan, I really needed that hug. I really needed that conversation. And to us, we're just like, well, it was 5 minutes. That 5 minutes can save lives. Like you talk to people who have suicidal ideation, they'll tell you straight up, that 5 minutes saved my life. That hug, that text, that phone call. I know life gets busy. What are some of the things that you found as that were maybe distractions?
Well, screens, first and foremost, screens are distractions. Um, I think anything where I find myself negotiating with myself to not do the thing I know I'm supposed to do. Oh, I can do this later. I can go to the gym or I can get a workout in later because I'm doing this, or I can um, write that email later because anytime I say because or later, like that's a negotiation and that's a distraction. So intentionality, like you said, is the perfect word for it. If I know there are things I need to do, and I'm not always perfect at it, for sure. The text messaging is a great example, and that's something that I implemented about 3 years ago. Again, like as I've gotten better at building community, creating community. My wife is a master at this. She is the most connected person I've ever met in my life. And she's great at just sending a text message off, and she doesn't need a reminder. I have like almost a spreadsheet of, oh, well, I haven't talked to this person since December. I got to send them a message. Just, hey, how you doing? Hope all is well in your world. Don't need anything from you. Just wanted to say hi. Hope you have a great day. Right? How are you? And 2 months ago, about a month and a half ago, my cousin responded. I hadn't talked to her in a while. She's like, well, my day's great now. How are you? You just made my day. I was like, all I did was send you a text message. So you don't know the impact that you have.
I sort my messages by date. I just go from
Mm,
the
mhm,
bottom, work my way up.
mhm.
Keep it nice and simple. And one of the things that I really love, even though maybe looking back is kind of sad as well, is I love when I reach out to someone and they're like, "Wow, thank you for doing that." Because sometimes it could be that they weren't expecting it, it was a surprise, or they just needed that conversation. That's how they would get through the with their day for you. How were you able to start over and rebuild your life?
For me, it really was reconnecting. in a natural way. It was not intentional. It was just, well, here I am. Um, I'm now bought a house. I'm living by myself. Now what do I do? Right. So started running a little bit, started getting out more frequently on the trails, got invited to do a trip on Mount Rainier by an old contact. He just said, hey, we could use another safety person. And again, I had a background in mountaineering once upon a time. I was like, yeah, man, I would love to. Thanks for thinking of me. Um, but at this time I was dating my wife now. And I said, she's pretty interested in mountaineering. Could she come along? Maybe just go to base camp with us, right? Maybe just hang out at our middle camp at Camp Sherman. He's like, yeah, I think that'd be fine. She came along and we ended up having this uh, epic interpersonal crazy thing with some of the other members on the team. And she showed her true colors by really supporting this woman who was having a hard time. And we were the last ones off the mountain, making sure that we had cleaned up after everybody and kind of done some emotional first aid. And I was like, man, I was being me, and she wanted more of that. And like, before we left Seattle, we got engaged. Like, this is it, right? Just you attract the people that you want to have around you by doing the things that most um, express who you are. And it shows. You can't fake it. When you're doing the thing you're meant to be doing, you can't fake it.
I find that when you're in a relationship and it's going well, healthy, successful, it like fuels you to be this beautiful, wholesome person. You speak about your partner. How has what role has she played in you becoming the man that you are today and helping all these people find their purpose as well?
Well, there's hope. Like it can get way better. Not as a comparison, just as this is where I was, and now here I am. And through building my own confidence, I was also attracting people who would challenge me when I needed to be challenged, and I wouldn't be broken by it. I wouldn't feel the shame, or I wouldn't feel any guilt. I would just feel like, oh, you are asking me to be better because you know there's more in there, and that's cool. That's like being coached. When I was younger, I had a really rough run in with a coach, and the assistant coach came over to me and was like, "Hey, don't worry about it when he yells at you a lot. It's when he stops yelling at you that you should worry. That means he doesn't care. Like right now, he just wants more from you because there's more there." And the people around me in my life, I think, are that way.
Were you able to accept that when you're being challenged, or was there some other emotions that you were experiencing?
Well, it depends on the timing and then on the day. Some days I probably bristle at it a little bit, but it goes on all the time, and so we come to expect it from one another. Yeah. Just like when I notice that I'm negotiating with myself, people around me notice it too, and vice versa. I notice it in her, and it's easy now because we built that trust for me to say things like, "Can we have a chat? Can I say something to you that's honest?" Or would you want to hear it later? Because we do say that sometimes. She's like, right now, I don't think I can do it. I'm like, okay, but when's a good time? Let's do it before we go to bed, because you don't want to go to bed with something over your head.
I remember the first time that I was challenged by a mentor that was helping me. He pushed hard, man. Right. And after that, I was like, wow, he was right. He wasn't in my face, but it was because the words were so harsh,
Mhm.
but necessary. Like, not disrespectful, but it was to the point. It was like, wow, it cut a part of me that I will never forget. But when I took a step back and I toned down the ego, that's where I took it. I was like, okay, I can work with this. Does ego and maybe pride inhibit us from moving forward?
Yeah, when those people challenge us, the challenge for me is to say, "Oh, you really see me. You know me really well because you said exactly the thing that is going to resonate and is going to stick with me for a while." Yeah, ego almost always gets in the way. And I think it's important to remember in most cases, it's not about me. Whatever's going on in the world is not about me. First of all, I'm not that important. And second of all, everybody's got their own stuff going on and they're going to react in different ways. Just like when I react negatively or in a way that I feel isn't being my best self, that's not about that person. It's about whatever I just left at home, or I missed a workout, or I'm frustrated because I didn't get something done, or whatever the case might be. And so it's a huge step. Life gets way easier when you don't allow your ego to get in the way and get bruised all the time.
I used to coach a young lady, even though she's over 60, but I call her a young lady.
Mm.
And she struggled with that because even though she was struggling in life, her pride, her ego enabled her to put on this avatar of a person. But let me tell you, once there's cracks in that armor, she became so defensive, so aggressive. And I remember I was working with her and I just asked her one day, I was like, do you want love? She was like, you mean from another person? I was like, yeah, or even from yourself.
Mm.
She's like, well, I do love myself because she listed why. I was like, okay, take away the external things, the toys, the house, the job. Would you still love yourself? She was like, I was like, ah.
Mm.
So is your identity the house, the car, and something else? Or if you were homeless, if you were jobless, if you worked at the local Starbucks, would you still have love for yourself? And she was unsure. And then I asked her, do you think someone could love that person? She was like, no.
Mm.
Right. And then I was like, okay, so does love expire? She's like, yeah. She's like, I think love is for those who are 20 and younger. I'm like, 20 and younger? I'm like, if you knew my dating history when I was in my 20s and my 19 and
It was
18,
not about love.
it was not about love. I'm not going to say what it was, but it definitely wasn't love, right?
Sure.
When it comes to identity, post breakup,
Mm.
even for yourself or some of the people that you coach, do you see them struggling with letting go of some of the external things that are maybe tied to identity that they're no longer going to be serving since the relationship is over?
I think it's a gradual process. What I find them having a hard time letting go of is the fairness or unfairness, or who was right, who was wrong, or am I recovering from this better, faster, in a nicer way than they are? And I try to remind them like we're looking this direction. We're moving forward. We're not doing those things because that's done. You can't do anything about that. That's where the Stoic philosophy piece comes in is, control what you can control. And that's also where the ego comes in. I cannot control what anyone else does. I can't control what they think of me. I can't control how they're going to talk to me. I can't control that happened because it did. What could have happened did happen. So what are we going to do with that? And that is the thing that I find people lingering on most, at least initially.
And I can't control the social circles that maybe I won't be a part of anymore.
True story. And that can be a little dicey
Yeah, I see people struggling with that. Do you see people struggling with that as well?
for sure. And I think the most successful people just show up and don't avoid the topic. Like, yeah, here I am. And yes, I'm alone. And yes, we're we're not together. How about that? I'm separate. I'm not alone. And yeah, we're gonna keep doing what we do.
Yeah, the word loneliness, it seems to alone. I rather that like someone being alone seems to for some people could be like a trigger, right? Where I am that way because my emergency contact is no longer a terrain, right?
And you
When I
get
go to
those
my
little
doctor
triggers
visits.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, to your point, right? Because you used to do things together, but now you got to do it separately, and maybe you're that way for 20 years, 15 years, who knows how long, right? The bed is cold.
Mm.
Do I get the whole bed now, or do I still sleep on my little side of the bed, right?
Yeah, and all those things are opportunities as well. So all those patterns that we fell into, and most of my work is just disrupting patterns, no matter who I'm working with. Like, this is your habit. This is what you do all the time without thinking. So let's throw some things in to shift those patterns. Let's break them up so that then we can fill in with things that we do want to do by choice. And the which side of the bed? Well, take it all. Sleep sideways. Do whatever you want. Change the sheets. Get rid of all those pillows. Add more pillows. Like, do your thing, because the more you're able to do those things, the better you're sort of able to just reclaim. Like, yeah, here I am.
Stoic philosophy.
Mm,
What is that and how does it work for those who are using it?
sure. It's lots of stuff. It's memento mori. Remember that you will die. So every day matters, and every interaction matters. To your point about I'm fabulous. Like, you're gonna make somebody's day. You're gonna make your own day, but you behaved in a way that took advantage of just being here. And you celebrated. Like, here I am in this time and space, and I'm gonna do the most I can with it. It is the biggest piece for me is remembering that there is going to be an input. Something is going to come in. There's going to be a stimulus. And at some point, I'm going to react to it. And my goal for everyone, and especially for me, is to create as big a space as I can between what comes in and what I do about it, so that I'm not just reacting, but that I am thoughtful and that I'm as peaceful as I can be. Because I can get as disappointed as anybody. I can want to throw a hammer across the garage when I can't get something to work right. But then I'm just going to have to go pick it up. Right. And so when I'm frustrated, I really try to just remember, um, take that space, take a breath. Just because this happened doesn't mean the reaction needs to be this. And working with people, um, this probably shows up the most with divorced parents when they get text messages that they don't like from their exes. And I just remind them, hey, you cannot read intent through a text message. That might be worth a phone call. That thing you're about to fire off, why don't you just take a breath and not? And let's process it. Text me before you text them. That's a coaching service I offer.
You mentioned disrupting patterns, and you also mentioned that, hey, you may want to take a moment, especially text messages. We're just firing those off,
Mhm.
right? Is that creating a safe, is that the person creating a safe space around them before they can create a safe space with others?
I think it is just protecting your own sanity. I think it's a reminder that you have a choice. You always have a choice. And that's your greatest power. You get to choose. Everybody else can behave that way. I can choose not to. I'll give you a great example. This came up recently. My father died last month, and after a long illness, and folks were coming in from out of town. And as these things happen, we're on the back porch, conversations, kind of cutting up a little bit, telling stories, yada, yada, yada. And as always happens, somebody didn't like something that somebody had said earlier in the day. And can you believe that this happened and that happened? And so I was listening to it. I said, well, what if, though, maybe they had done this and they meant it this way and this person didn't even know, and just trying to. And my oldest daughter said, well, that's the most generous interpretation. And I just let that thought rattle around in my brain for 2 weeks now, because immediately after my divorce, I was not able to give someone the benefit of the doubt to give the most generous interpretation. So I think it is a practice, but man, life changes when you are willing to offer people the benefit of the doubt. Uh, You don't feel reactive. You don't take things personally. And it just, remember, everybody's just doing their best. We are all just doing our best with the information that we have and the experiences that have gotten us to this point.
That's something that I truly believe in, where we all have a choice in a lot of decisions that we make. Sometimes we may not feel like we have that choice, but when we think about it, we do. And it gets easy to
Mm.
stay in the mud, to stay in the misery, to stay in the pain. But many of us eventually gonna have to say, I want better. I want something different. I want to feel differently. I just want to say that today is going to be the beginning of something totally different than it was yesterday. How do we get them to that moment where they come to the terms and they say, I choose me today, and I'm going to continue to make healthy choices going forward to become the new person?
Yeah, that's the second question I ask. So when I say, what do you want? And I expect them to say, I have no idea. Like, great. What are you willing to do this week that is just for you? It is one thing. It can be very small. What are you going to do for yourself this week? And I'm going to hold you accountable to that. Just know that. So if you say, I'm going to call my sister, I want to know when you do it. If you say, I'm going to take myself out for a walk, I want to know when you do it, because that is you taking agency and knowing that you have a choice and that what happens to you next is 100% up to you. So, how are you going to handle that?
Scary Island for some people.
It is. Uh, it is a few times. But what about when you succeed the first time, the second time, the third time? Each time I've got a diagram with these little dominoes, right? Yeah, a domino can knock over another domino 1.5 times its size. So let's start really small, and that's fine. But what comes next? What's the next thing you're going to do? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And it doesn't always have to be skydiving. Doesn't You don't have to sell your house and move to Bali. But I've had people book tickets to go swim with manatees. I've had people sign up for mini marathons, a half marathon. I've had people a lot of times it's booking trips through hike a local trail. Yeah, people start to accomplish those things that they always wanted to do because they now have these little wins that stack on top of each other. You have the courage to do the first thing. Well, that gives you a little confidence to do the next thing that takes a little more courage, which builds a little more confidence, and on and on and on.
Let me ask you one final question, but I want to
Mm.
give you three wishes for this question. What are three things you wish people knew about coaching the person they used to be and why?
Hmm. Coaching the person you used to be can be challenging because it's easy to make excuses for things that have already happened. To rationalize and say, well, I did that because, instead of just being super honest and saying I had other options and I didn't take them. I think that's pretty tricky. So that would be one thing that's really hard. Another thing that's hard about coaching the person you used to be is sometimes I you can't read the label from inside the bottle. When you're in it, you can't the next step is not obvious to you. From my seat, the next step is so obvious and I want you to take it so badly. Will you just do this thing? But my job is to ask you questions, is not to tell you what to do. And so finding the patience to not patience, it's more just I really want your success and I can see I think this thing is going to work for you. And how do I nudge